USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Tap the banner to learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
Greetings, sisters. I'm Tom. I hope you had good Easters and a nice break from FPL. Apologies immediately. I'm currently recovering from a bit of a chest infection. Happy Easter to me. So I'm a bit croakier than usual. I will try to spare you the coughing, etc. by muting liberally, but Sam may have to take the lead a little bit here today. Some may say my illness may have been caused by Arsenal's quadruple, halving down to a double. And one man who's very happy that that's happened doesn't he join me today? In Sam, how are you, mate? All good? Nice break?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy about you being ill, but if the reason is Southampton knocking Arsenal out of the cup, then I will take it. That was, I'm not going to lie, probably the most happy I've been watching football in a long, long time. Well, probably since the playoff final a couple of years ago, but wow, that was a hell of a night. So yeah, gonna milk that one a little bit at times during the podcast, I'm sure. But it also has massive ramifications to the remaining few game weeks of the FPL season. Of course, we've removed very likely double game week for Arsenal from the calendar and for Newcastle as well, which has had pretty significant knock-on effects to everyone's strategy, which we'll be going into today. But yes, to answer your question, I'm very well, thank you. As always, we are Who Got the Assist. On today's agenda, we'll have a quick look back and remind ourselves as to how we got on in blank game week 31, although that does feel like a proper lifetime ago now. It's been a long break and a much needed one as well, but we will remind ourselves briefly before then moving on to the upcoming game week 32. And obviously we now know all we need to know to plan our chip strategy for the rest of the season. We've had doubles locked in. There's one final double game week one fixture really that needs to get placed somewhere else, which will create a double game week, but even that feels very likely to go into game week 36. So we can have a look at the doubles and the blanks coming up and what that means for our potential chip strategies, not just our own, but for the different diverse chip strategies that you might be out there looking into. You might have a different combination of chips or a different team setup, which might mean a different chip strategy might be more suitable for you. So we'll have a general chat around all of those. And then we'll do a live reveal of both of our wildcard drafts. I hit the button late yesterday. I think you hit it quite a while ago. I pondered it for a bit. There was another strategy I like the look of, but in the end, I also hit the button for reasons that will become clear later. We'll discuss the differences, if there are any. We haven't actually looked at each other's drafts yet, so that will be interesting. And then not really doing form versus fixture this week. Maybe worth a chat on whether there are some single game week players who could work well to differentiate us, but also other FPL players out there. And then, of course, 1 week punts and captaincy to end off the pod. It is Tuesday, the 7th of April. The Champions League is on in the background, as are Southampton, who are winning at halftime. So if there are any shrieks or moans halfway through the pod, besides Tom's coughing, it will be because either Arsenal have scored or conceded or Southampton have scored or conceded. So apologies in advance for that. But there's not too many players that are FPL relevant playing tonight, other than perhaps Gabriel. So hopefully not too many ramifications on that. But of course, first, we should probably start off with a quick reminder of how we got on in game week 31. Tom, you're up.
Yeah. So, God, blimey, it feels like it's been a while. Just the small reds in the blank, just about clinging on to the top 100k. Basically, well, I made 3 transfers, didn't I? Yeah, I took a hit. So I think it was Haaland's João Pedro as a bit of a coverage move. Wilson came in for Potts, and then I bought a Morgan Gibbs-White as my vibes-based punt price in the end, which was my first sort of hit of the season. And yeah, I think I was 4 points from safety in the end, which might be related to my hit. but actually the moves brought me 6 points in, otherwise I wouldn't have had. So I suppose it kept me competitive. You can look at it in lots of different ways. But the real culprit really was actually James Hill scoring an own goal, which took off -1. You don't need me to tell you that if he'd have gotten his usual DEFCON or something, it probably would have been very close to a green. So, yeah, small. Oh, Malik Chow, of course, he got benched, didn't he?
Oh,
And
yeah,
then
of
he
course.
came off. And because we were out, and I saw Chow had scored just before I lost signal, and I was like, yes, get in. Got out of where we were, and I was like, oh, bollocks. And then conceded 2 goals, didn't he? So yeah, might as well have not come on. I think he played 44 games in a row before getting finally benched by Howe. So yeah, very glad Newcastle on double game week mix, because I just hate Eddie Howe's guts right now. I'd forgotten I hated Eddie Howe's guts before this moment, and now I just remembered that. That big stupid pie face. But yeah, anyway, small margins, and I start chip season just inside the top 100k, which is a fine place to be, I reckon. So, yep, team is completely gone now, pretty much, apart from like 2 or 3 players. Yeah, it's just felt so long ago. You had a really good birthday though, didn't you? It was your birthday weekend. Like mine's coming up as well. It's funny how it seems to be over weekends. Hopefully you make it 2 for 2. But how did you get on?
Yeah, you've got to get a green arrow on your birthday, don't you? So fingers crossed for you. I did get a green arrow, 63 points for me, up to 332k, which was a healthy green of, I think it was about 50k places. I went up, maybe 60 actually, if I remember rightly, around about that. But I still haven't broken my streak of no top 1 million ranks in any single game week this season. I was so close, about a point outside of it, which is made even worse by the fact that Alderete, who played, I think it was the final, well, certainly on the Sunday, I think it was one of the final games of the weekend, in the DEFCON update would have gotten DEFCON. So he would have got 2 extra points at like 5-6% effective ownership.
Yeah, I remember all that malarkey. Yeah.
That would have been my first top 1 million rank of the season. But alas, no cigar. But it's still a healthy green arrow on my birthday weekend. Kelleher got 9, so he got an extra point after the games wrapped up. I think Van Dijk and Anderson both hit DEFCON, if I remember. Bruno got 13, which I didn't captain, so it could have been even better. But I did bring in Harry Wilson for his goal, and I think he got 2 bonus points. Captained him. I think I brought him in for Declan Rice, if I remember now, but it is testing my memory a little bit. Morgan Rogers also got an assist, which was very welcome news after a long period of blanking for him. So I'm glad I held on to him. My forwards did very little other than Thiago hitting DEFCON, weirdly enough. And Anderson, I did actually have a bench player. I had Elliot Anderson for 5 points, which meant that I could have, if I did nothing this week, started Elliot Anderson, captain Bruno Fernandes, and I think I would have netted out at almost identical points. So I didn't need to make the transfer. A bit of a waste of an extra one, but the way things are shaping up for the rest of the season, there aren't too many transfers I've got booked in, so I might get away with it. But it's a competitive score moving forwards, and I'm not in as strong a position as you are going into the chip season, but I've got a hope. And 100k is certainly within the realms of possibility, and I will be doing my darndest to get there.
Yeah, you can't be too far off, can you? So yeah. All right. That's our starting point for as we get into the business end. And yeah, all was announced today in terms of the days and dates, and it's well, I think we've got one game which was sort of nailed on, as you mentioned earlier. I think most predictors, apart from Saints fans and actually me, I did text you, didn't I, saying I want you to win this. Sorry, Arsenal fans. Thought that Southampton were going to lose to Arsenal, so that double is off. But there are 6 teams doubling, aren't there?
Yeah, there are. So the nice surprise we got going into the FA Cup weekend, I believe, was that actually that final fixture, the West Ham Leeds fixture, we got news that whichever team progressed would actually get their postponed fixture move forward into game week 33, which a lot of the predictors weren't necessarily expecting to happen, which was a nice surprise. It meant the double game week was a little bit bolstered by some cheaper options, whichever way that result went. Obviously, Leeds went through in what was a hell of a game, by the way. I don't know if you watched it, Tom, but that was a really enjoyable watch. Almost as enjoyable as Southampton Arsenal, but not quite. But it did give us the 6 fixtures. So we've got Bournemouth doubling with Newcastle away, Leeds at home. That is obviously due to Leeds going through in the FA Cup. Brighton doubling with Spurs away, Chelsea at home, thanks to Chelsea battering Port Vale. Burnley getting Nottingham Forest and Man City. Obviously, City beating Liverpool quite handedly. Chelsea doubling with Man United and Brighton, their opponents. Leeds with Wolves and Bournemouth. Probably the nicest combination of the 6, I would say. But we can talk about that. And then you've got Man City with Arsenal at home. But then they've got the really lovely fixture away at Burnley in the double game week as well. So 6 teams doubling. I would say it's perhaps a little on the uninspiring side, but there are good players in there. We've got some big teams in there and some cheaper options in all positions as well, which is really, really helpful when you're planning out something like a bench boost, for example. So it's not an unaffordable draft, as I'm sure we'll both come on to later. And there are some cheap options there that make this a little bit more exciting, but there will be some popular players in there as well, which we just cannot seem to avoid. I assume. I haven't seen your draft, but I'm assuming 5 or 6 are definitely in.
Yeah, no, I think that there's definitely been a few sort of things to comment here. So the outcome has definitely favoured Premier League minutes. If Arsenal and Liverpool had been in it and doubling, we'd have a lot more marginal choices to make in our teams, depending on our understanding and judgment of expected minutes based on European competitions. Like, we would be sat here looking at Liverpool's fixture with Fulham being like, well, who can we trust to start? Oh my God, what are we going to do? The way it's fallen with Chelsea and City making up the bulk of our expenditure, we can be much more confident on extended or even sort of full minutes for our picks. I know there's the FA Cup coming up after, but I think that's probably, I don't know, the importance of the league versus the cup, Sam. I think that you'll see that maybe for Leeds coming maybe more onto the table, but for Man City and for Chelsea, I don't know, man. I just feel like it's been very good for, you know, those picks, especially kind of, I think there'll be a core 5 that will be in pretty much every wild card now. I think those guys are, it is really, really favoured a certain set of players, hasn't it, being basically every wildcard team?
I think so. And yeah, it's a bit annoying in that sense because, yeah, we could probably name them now. I'm going to guess for you. It'll be Haaland, Semenyo, O'Reilly from City side. O'Reilly is maybe a little bit more up for debate. Semenyo maybe swaps for Cherky in some drafts if you're feeling bold, but O'Reilly, you could look at Gahey, you could look at Nunez, but for me, those would be the 3 that I prefer right now. And then on the Chelsea side, I think you're more trusting of João Pedro and Palmer than you are any other attackers right now. Enzo Fernandez obviously being internally suspended for game week 32 probably makes him a little bit of an annoying one to try and pick up on a wild card because, okay, they've said he's back in after that game, but what if he throws another fit and then all of a sudden he's back out for an extended period? You don't know. And it's one less player you can rely on in game week 32. So I think it'll be João Pedro, Palmer. You might sneak a defender in there, but they've not been great defensively. And there's a lot of rotation going on in that back line. And not just for the sake of rotation, but also a lot of those players do have very poor injury records. So it's harder to predict with Chelsea. So yeah, those 5 will probably make up the bulk of the money on a wild card and also take up quite a lot of the effective ownership vacuum. But there's a lot more fun to be had around it, I think. And there's nothing to say that you couldn't go different in any of those positions. It's just I am currently finding it quite difficult to put up a strong case to differentiate for the sake of it with any of those in particular. I don't know how you feel about those though.
Yeah, I think we'll get to it when we get to our teams. It's some of it I think just picks itself. Pretty much a lot of it actually picks itself. And I might have preferred for West Ham to win and Everton and them to get the double because the wildcard draft on the other side was actually really expensive, whereas one we have I think is actually quite attainable. The net price for West Ham's assets are much higher than Leeds's and Everton much more than Bournemouth, particularly at the back. And it meant that team value would have been in the equation if West Ham had won. I think it kind of came down to penalties, basically, which way the season was going to spin out. And yeah, I mean, mentioned it with Liverpool. I'm not particularly bothered that Arsenal are out from an FPL point of view. As a fan, I definitely care a bit more. But as a Leo Zienza stan, before Saints fans knew who he was, I'm very happy to see him doing well. I think the Arsenal picks, even though, they are great to have, I think they'd have been kind of utterly cover picks anyway, proper beige, Gabriel Rice, then maybe Raya, maybe there'd be some kind of question about including Gyökeres, but I mean, they're just wallpaper. So it does open things up a little bit, which I don't mind at all. But it does lead to people kind of being in different situations, to move on to kind of general chip routes. I mean, we got to say it. It's teamdependent.com. It's yucky, but you've got to say it. So
probably more so than ever, actually.
Days. Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah. Free transfers, how you landed this week, and it's just so hard to cover all eventualities, isn't it, Sam? But there's probably a few which I suppose we can give voice to, and then beyond that, it's a case of just trying to, use your own initiative to figure out exactly what works for you and your team.
Yeah, so in times like this, I always like to batch the chips a little bit, because you've got the proper game changers like the wildcard and free hit, where you can completely rejig your side, and then you've got bench boost, triple captain, which are fundamentally better to use in a double game week. They're more powerful in those weeks than they are in any single game week, so the upside is higher. So ideally, you want to maneuver your wildcard and free hit to build you up best, set you up best for the double game weeks to use the other chips. So I think if you've got wildcard and free hit, you're looking at, well, you could look at other routes, but I think one of two routes probably makes the most logical sense. There's the one that I think we're both going to be on, which is wildcard now, set up for bench boost in game week 33 if you've got that left. And then the free hit is in game week 34 to basically remove all the players that just had the double, who will then blank in game week 34. And it's quite a nice, simple, logical way of working your way through the double, then the following blank after wildcarding to set yourself up for it as well. There is the other route, though, where you can, with free transfers, try and set yourself up for game week 32 and 34, but then just free hit in game week 33 instead to bring in all the double game weekers. Maybe you don't fancy owning Leeds, Brighton, maybe some Chelsea players in particular, those Bournemouth as well, on a wild card, and you don't want them long term, but you're happy to own them for just the double game week. Bring them in on the free hit for that. Play as normal through 32 and 34. If you're already stacked up with Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool, it might work quite well for you. And then you might want to wild card out of it in game week 35 to then potentially set up for a bench boost in 36. Now that's a really reasonable strategy as well. But if you've got a triple captain chip left to use, then you are unfortunately blocked from using it in a double game week if you follow that path through. So you would have to use the triple captaincy in a single game week if you had one left. So I think if you've got all of the chips, the first route makes the most sense, because then you can just triple captain in game week 36 in the very small double later on in the season. But if you've only got 3 of them left, including that free hit and wildcards, then either of those work, and it's more down to how your team is set up and what the makeup of it is including. If you've got more Man City and Chelsea, or if you've got more Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United. And I think the Wire boys mentioned it quite nicely. It's basically, are you team red at the moment, i.e. are the players that you own all basically in red kits, or are they mainly in blue? And that will then determine which route is probably a little bit nicer for you on the whole. But then we go into like weirder combinations. Like if you don't have a wild card, there are a few different routes you could look at. If you don't have a free hit, then it does get a little bit odd. Maybe you're wildcarding in game week 34 or something, and just trying to use transfers up until that point. Lots of different combinations. But are there any on the non-wildcard side that you would want to highlight right now, Tom?
I think that most people would. I feel like it's very hard to tell, isn't it? Like the popularity. I think, as you said, red versus blue thing makes a lot of sense. Wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free at 34 still feels like the most popular. I think that's the situation most people have found themselves in. Bench boost and free hit, if you've got those left, I suppose you can just kind of mirror the popular route. set up bench boost this week, bench boost 33, free hit and 34. But then it starts to get more fun, doesn't it? And I don't know, man. I don't know whether it's worth going through all these, or just kind of saying, you know what, you knew what you were doing if you wildcarded early. You knew what you were doing probably if you were free hitting earlier, or I don't know. I doubt you'd be listening to this if you were just doing it on a whim, or if you did do it on a whim, you kind of now probably have an appreciation for the fact you've got to do a bit of a cleanup job. The fact is, it's about trying to ensure that you can compete on the field. I think on the weeks when chips are going to be played, 36 is going to be interesting to a lot of people who don't have wildcard left, because there are going to be the vast majority of people played out then. If you've got triple captain left, and obviously that goes in 36, but there's definitely kind of, as you said, Sam, a real appreciation the fact that, you know, if you've got other chips to play, then you're not going to be able to play your triple captain in a double. And I suppose a lot of it is about looking at your team, where it stands, what you think everyone else is going to do, and taking into account your rank as well. So if you're 1 million overall and you're getting to 33, I probably wouldn't be too worried about what everybody else is doing in the engaged community and what their template is. I'd be thinking about what suits my team best in terms of transitioning between 33, 34 and coming back out of the blank in 35. And then looking at the chips that I've got and serving them up accordingly. I just feel like a lot of it has to be your own sort of initiative here, which is something which is very difficult to legislate for absolutely everything which is out there. As it is, I'm just going to do, as I said that quite a few times, I'm chronically underthinking it and just going to do the usual path. But that might not be for everyone, and that's really cool. I mean, if you do want to message me on Blue Sky predominantly, then we can have a look at it. But realistically, I do think, Sam, despite the fact there has been some umming and ahhing about, you know, losing Arsenal and due to the outcomes of the FA Cup, there has been some umming and ahhing about the 32, 33, 34 kind of popular path. But I do think it's going to be the most popular one, isn't it?
I think it will be the most popular one, but I don't think it will be by as much as we thought it would be. It's actually been a bit of a leveler, the FA Cup results, and the fact that we've had the extra double game week fixture go in that a few of us weren't necessarily expecting, that being the Leeds Bournemouth one, of course. So with that in mind, it's not necessarily obvious that wildcard 32 is just a given for the majority of teams. I think it will be in a few people's scenarios regardless. Like, we've both wildcarded, we still feel like it's probably the best for our team. But when I was looking at it, the other route that I had in mind, which would be the setup for 34, across this week and in game week 34 itself, free hitting in 33, and then wildcarding 35 into the bench boost 36, it doesn't come up much behind at all. It's only really a couple of projected points here or there, which between mates, between 7 game weeks, it's not really much. Like, you can regain that on a bit of variance across 7 weeks. So don't let anybody tell you that one strategy is better than the other at this point. If you are set up, even if you've got 1 or 2 players different, it could completely change which is the best strategy for you. And the couple of swing factors for me were that I don't know when Timber's going to be fit again. I don't really have that much faith in Ekatike at the moment either. And those were the final 2 nails in my wild card coffin that I was just like, you know what? I can refresh this now and it's still a good strategy for me. So it worked for me. It might not work quite as well for other people. And genuinely, the other strategy is going to be more powerful for people who do have a couple more Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United right now, where you can just play the team that you've already currently got in game week 34 and just free hit in game week 33 to load up on the doublers. That works absolutely fine as well. So don't worry if you're going off the beaten path here, because I don't think there's one strategy which is miles ahead, which I think going into this into the FA Cup weekend, we thought there probably would be one which was just so obviously better for so many people. I think it's been a bit of a leveler. That's not to say the first strategy is a bad one anymore. We're still on it. It's still a good one. But I think there has been a bit of just a leveling out somewhat of the different routes. And I don't think it'll be quite as cut and dry that one is ahead of the other anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I suppose kind of we were back on my last pod. We asked Tom like, how worried are you about a particular wildcard drafts? I suppose now we should have a look at what we've managed to cook up. So both active. These are our teams pretty much right now, and I'm not entirely sure how different they're going to be. So I'm going to spend a minute having a look.
They look remarkably similar already.
Yeah,
if I'm looking through, we've got the same captain. We've both kept Bruno Fernandes. Think our front seven are currently the same.
This is the same
both got
team.
Hinchelwood. I'll run through mine, and then I think I think there are two differences. Is it three? So we've both got Verbruggen. You've gone with Petrovic. I've gone with Darlow as the second keeper. Maybe that's because of team value. I know yours is very good. Mine is not. In defense, I have gone. Well, the similarities are Strauch, Van Hecker, O'Reilly. And then you've got two differences in defense. So you've got Cucurella and Senesi, whereas I've got Gabriel and Hill. In midfield, I think we're all the same all the way through. So Bruno, Semenyo, Palmer, Hinchelwood, and Tavernier. And then up top, same three of Haaland, João Pedro, Calvert-Lewin. So very, very similar. 12 out of 15. I imagine the team value thing is making a bit of a difference here. But the important thing to note at this point is, although I think both of these look like relatively template wildcards, I did count up the numbers before I podded just to make sure. 9 of my 15, and I think it will be similar for you, are under 10% owned but across the game. In fact, a couple of them are under 1% owned. So yes, there'll be a bit of a movement towards wildcard throughout the week, and I'm sure they'll go up, but they won't necessarily be all 80 plus effective ownership. There will still be margin for improvement, and there are a couple of positions that I'm sure that you're debating, I'm debating. So why don't we go through it? What are your first thoughts?
How much you got in the bank?
0.9, I think.
Whoa, okay. I've got
maybe 0.8.
Okay, I've got 2.9 million in the bank. Basically,
yeah, but you don't have Gabriel.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So basically, the whole thing for me was, do I keep Gabriel or not? And I decided not to, just because we'll see what happens tonight. But I do have some concerns about the Bournemouth game, then I just be like, well, I'll take the punt on Cucurella playing a couple more games. There aren't that many kind of games left, really, so I can just buy Gabriel back, and I've got that money in the bank to do so. Be it 35, but I do land quite nicely in 35. I need to make a transfer then. 36, I might be looking elsewhere, so maybe only be a couple of games in 37 and 38, and just going to hold out hope that he's not going to punish me too much. I say that, of course he will. But yeah, I mean, realistically, I think the only thing I've done since then is actually Strike or Biol is one thing. I think I'm pretty happy with lots of Hinchelwood. We'll talk about these all. But I mean, I do think a lot of it picks itself. The only reason I've got Petrovic in is because I've got, there could be a moment when Peri Sauce shows up for Leeds. It could happen. I very much doubt it, but it could. Whereas Petrovic, I know, is quite nailed. And I think that the Verbruggen and Petrovic give you Crystal Palace and Wolves at home, then Leeds and Nottingham Forest away over 35 to 38, which is fine. I mean, none of it. It's not the most exciting wildcard in lots of different ways, unfortunately. I don't think there are going to be many kind of disagreements for a lot of picks here. I think maybe around the edges there will be some form of artificial debate, but I think more than anything else, there's going to be similarities. So Verbruggen as probably as the goalkeeper, or Double Bright in defence as a pick, I think that probably will be something that sticks in. I think that where the difference may be is if people do want to go for a midfielder or go for Welbeck. I have some concerns about Welbeck playing both games, and despite the fact that I haven't got a game on the weekend after that, I've still got some concerns about that. For City, I think that O'Reilly, Semenyo, and Haaland, I think that is the three. I don't really see much point taking on that three. For Chelsea, João Pedro and Palmer are the two. And I don't, I've chucked in Cucurella, but I completely understand why you stick with Gabriel, and you keep Bruno Fernandes, you chuck into Vernier and one of Hill and Senesi. And then suddenly you're looking at what goalkeeper 2, defender, and then maybe one of the midfielders, and then one of the strikers being the key areas of question. Was that 4 slots?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. If it had gone the other way, there'd been so much more to talk about. Whereas I feel like it's not unexciting, because I think that this team, compared to the team that non-wildcards are going to have, that's going to be absolutely seismic. And I think that is a really, really good thing. I mean, within this kind of narrow microcosm of FPL, we're looking at wildcard teams. People can be like, oh, yeah, your team's the same. But then when you zoom out, when the game week starts, as you said earlier on, loads of these players are very low owned. And I think that, hopefully, that's going to kind of be brought to bear. Maybe not this week. If it lands badly, then so be it. But in 33, especially, and then the run in between 35 and 38 is really good for the set of players, isn't it?
Yeah, so the differences won't necessarily be between that many people on the wild cards. It will be between those who are on a strategy versus a different strategy. So a lot of these picks will be quite popular, and if it's not the specific player, it will be someone else in that shirt in that position. So for example, you might not have Strauch, but you might have Rodon if he's fit, or Goodmanson or Bijol instead, but it's still a Leeds defender. You might not have Petrovic, but you might have Senesi alongside Hill, or you might have a Darlow instead of a Leeds defender. So you're still covering off the same ownerships of those teams in those positions generally, but it might just have a different player face. And okay, DEFCON's goals, assists might change, and those can obviously be quite noisy events, but generally speaking, the coverage will be quite similar. Same goes for O'Reilly. You might look at Nunez, and that could get you an extra 10 points if you're lucky. But I think Nunez is slightly more expensive, worse goal threat. I just go with O'Reilly, keep it simple, right? So the positions that I'm currently debating, I don't really have much doubt over Darlow. I'm not going to lie. I think he's pretty safe. Perry didn't have the best game. He saved some penalties, obviously, but that's not something a manager usually starts the keeper for afterwards. They're not in a constant penalty shootout, and Darlow's played well, and Leeds' defensive numbers have been good, so I don't know why they would drop him. So Darlow feels secure to me. Defensively, I think the decision for me will be whether I go with double Bournemouth defense, so Senesi and Hill, or if I just go Gabriel instead. So that Gabriel slot could become Senesi. I'm weighing up whether or not I want to basically remove a transfer from my future plans and just have Gabriel anyway. He's kind of the best player in the game this season for points per game anyway. So I don't know whether removing him makes much sense for me when I've got a lot of value tied up in him. I've not got that much spare money on the wild card. So I need to be really, really sure that I've got a route back to him. If I do put Senesi in there instead, which would be tight. So Gabriel stays for me at the moment. Obviously worse on the double game week bench boost, but aside from that, I think he's much better to own. Then in midfield, the position of most interest is the Hinchelwood one. Until today, it was Gross. It could be Gomez. There are also non-Brighton players I'm looking at, like Anthony at Burnley, still has a double game week, or even Ismail Assar, who would have a double game week later on down the line and remove a transfer from future planning. Decent fixture in game week 33 as well, albeit a single. So not completely out of the question. And then, like you said, up front, Calvert-Lewin is the obvious one, probably. But Welbeck, if you think that he gets 130 minutes across the double, if you're lucky, maybe a 40-minute sub if you're lucky on the second game. But I think that's probably a limit. I think more like 110 is more likely. It's whether or not you think that's enough to beat Calvert-Lewin. You could also look at Fleming as well, who has not been bad for Burnley whatsoever and does have a double game week and is pretty cheap. So there are options up front, but I do think Calvert-Lewin is the more obvious one. So yeah, those are the positions I'd even consider changing between. I think that 4th, 5th midfielder, the Brighton one, is up for debate slightly. And the defensive spot for Gabriel versus Senesi is probably the other one I'm considering.
Yeah, no, that's the long and short of it, I'm afraid. Let's go side by side just to make sure that we can cover everything off. So City, I said earlier on, O'Reilly, Semenyo, Haaland was absolutely nailed, does it not? But you said earlier on, Cherky could be a fun punt, especially for free hitters, potentially. And when we get there, like Nunez or Gahey could be okay if you want to go defensively as well. I don't know, it feels very much like if you're free hitting that week, so you've got an extra week to kind of look at it, that might happen. Because there's an argument, for example, that Cherky coming into the team could reinvigorate things, and he could be kind of playing almost the classical Foden role. So by 33, you may be regressing having Semenyo. I very much doubt you will, but you might be.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, Semenyo looks pretty nailed at the moment, as nailed as a Man City midfielder forward can be. But they are shifting formation at the moment, and whilst he appears to still be in favour in that new formation, it's not impossible that minutes get taken off of him at some point. So there is risk attached there, but I would currently say that you've got to play the cards that you're currently dealt. And all of the information we've got so far on Semenyo is he is the most nailed of those options. Cherky's great. We all love him, but will he get the minutes consistently? We just don't know. Much less nailed than Semenyo is. Foden, absolutely no chance. You've got other wingers that are coming back into the role. You've got Savinho possibly getting minutes at some point. But yeah, I mean, Semenyo just feels like the most likely to get you the outcome you want. It's not to say you can't go against him, but it's quite difficult to make a strong case for anyone in that City shirt other than Cherky in the midfield. And even it doesn't fill me with any form of excitement. He gets benched way too often. He's nowhere near integral enough to the City system as Semenyo is. Maybe Rodri is not the worst option in the world as someone who almost certainly will start, decent on DEFCONs, little bit of attacking threat. But if we're really having a debate between Semenyo or Rodri when money's not really an issue, what are we doing here? Like, it's Semenyo. Come on. He's been one of the best players in the league this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I just can't see a way past those three. But for Chelsea as well, I think João Pedro and Palmer feel nailed. Yeah, I don't think they'd have been nailed as much if West Ham nebbed and doubled. I think that we'd definitely be kind of talking about Njai, we'd be talking about maybe Matis Fernandes, and up front, definitely kind of Jared Bowen being with a shout of maybe kind of shaking things up a bit.
Definitely.
I suppose for them, it's more about, do you bother with a third? Like Cucurella's in my team. I don't mind kind of looking at another midfielder potentially, like Neto as an alternative. Probably steer clear from Enzo now. As you said, there's been a few question marks about them defensively, lots of rotation. It's just whether you kind of punt it out on a player like Cucurella. But I think it's probably the only one you can punt it out on defensively.
I think so.
Or whether you just stick with a tried and tested Gabriel. I mean, I know I've sold him, but there's nothing stopping me. Yes, okay, it'd be tail between my legs. I've lost a lot of value, blah, blah, blah. And buying him back if I elect to do so. I do just look at it and think, well, yeah, okay, I'm losing a transfer. I'm gaining a transfer going forward. There's just not that much left of the season almost. So I feel like, the time to just go for it is now. Maybe I'll be proven an idiot. Which is more than likely, to be fair. And maybe I should be kind of avoiding the siren beckoning of a double, or that sexy curly hair of Cucurella's, and just kind of be more sensible and just have Gabriel in. But yeah, I mean, I can't. No, part of me just struggles to pass up going for a doubler. Especially because I'll be free hitting him 34 anyway. I don't know, man. And you land with 35, Nottingham Forest at home. And I like the narrative as well of him away at Brighton in 34 too. Yeah, I mean, I can see that one going both ways. I think double midfield would be really triple attack, sorry, would be really, really spicy. Buying a defensive one, I can see why you go there. But I think it has to be basically Cucurella or a bust.
Yeah. Look, I mean, maybe it's a team value thing for me, but I'm not interested in Chelsea defense. They've been very inconsistent this season. A lot of those players get injured quite often. I'd love someone like a Reece James or a Chalobah, but you just can't go there. Chalobah's obviously out at the moment. Even Sanchez feels very ropey. You're right in the sense that Cucurella is probably the one that feels the most likely to start all the matches, but if you actually look back at his minutes, he's not that nailed either as far as I'm concerned. So I would be worried about any of them, and at that price I'm just not interested. Maybe it is because of my team value, but Cucurella is probably the most palatable. He's got decent attacking threat. I don't really like the Brighton fixture, if I'm honest. I know you mentioned the narrative on a positive side. I would actually swerve towards the negative side. A lot of Chelsea fans seem to hate that fixture, and that Brighton usually up their game specifically against Charlton. Where did that come from? Chelsea. So I would be a little bit more nervous about that one, if anything. But again, these are all just narratives, and Cucurella for me just hasn't been a consistent enough FPL pick this season for me to pick him over someone like Gabriel, if I know that in doing so I've lost the value, and it makes it really difficult for me to get back to Gabriel when I know that I will want him back. The two single game weekers I've got have been probably the two best players in FPL this season, Fernandes and Gabriel. So I think there's good reason to keep both. Gabriel's the one I would consider, but not for a Chelsea defender. I personally, it would be more likely for Senesi, who at least I know will get DEFCON in both of the double fixtures.
Okay, all right. It's worth thinking about. I think I'm happy to kind of go the other way and get Gabriel back, but that's more of a team value thing more than anything else potentially.
Yeah, it's also how many transfers do you think you've got booked in later on down the line? That's what I'm weighing up as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'm more than happy at this point to just be quite blasé about it, to be honest, just 'cause there's not much of the season left.
Yeah, but there is a Palace double game week, and you will want to get back to Arsenal players as well. So I would be careful with that. There will be transfers you'll want to make.
Yeah, no, you are right. I think the thing is that I think about the Arsenal players. I think there's one, but I really want to get back, which is Gabriel. The rest of them, I mean, yes, okay, we have Rice for a little while, but I don't know, like after that kind of Bournemouth 17-pointer, yeah, okay, there was the occasion. I think there's one kind of assist for a 9-pointer against Wolves, but other than that, there wasn't very much. I had Raya, you had Timber, and neither of us were particularly. I mean, I was more excited by Raya than you were by Timber's returns. I mean, let's see how the season ends. We don't know yet. It might be that another player emerges. I just wonder whether this is a bit of a moment where kind of form, as it were, goes out the window and you just narrowly focus on week-to-week stuff. That'll be the way that I'm looking at it anyway.
I think it's the double game week for me. It is important. We've got Palace who will double. Neither of us have got any Palace players in there. So you'll probably want to get to at least one or two of those. I would say two. Now, maybe they are a rotation nightmare by that point, and maybe we don't end up wanting that many of them, but I think it's more likely that we do. So that's probably a couple of free transfers you want to have stored ready for that game week. And then on top of that, I would be very surprised if you didn't want to get back to Gabriel before that point as well. So that's already probably all of the 3 free transfers that you've got stored. If there's an injury or a player that comes out the woodwork that you really want to get to, that's a hit straight away. So let's say Saka becomes absolutely nailed and that Madueke gets injured. Just as an example, it could be the inverse of that. It could be that all of a sudden Trossard becomes the next coming, or Gordon, for instance, anyone. It's nice to have that spare transfer ready. And I know the playing it week to week thing is very important, but having Gabriel allows you to play it week to week with more flexibility. So it's just an option I'm considering. I'm not locked into having Gabriel to begin with, but it's it's important to me, at least, to make sure that I've got transfers to get to Palace and a healthy amount of Palace and Arsenal. It should I want to, and having Gabriel in situ would help me get there. But again, far from locked.
Yeah, I think maybe coming into this with one free transfer as well is not the best from our perspective. But hey, it is what it is. Brighton, Verbruggen, Van Hecker seem quite template. The third, as mentioned, Welbeck all the way, or maybe Hinchelwood. Welbeck's 0.52 XGI per 90, which is okay. Mins are tricky to predict midweek, and I feel like with JP, João Pedro and Haaland nailed, the third striker spot is a straight shootout between him, Calvert-Lewin, or maybe a single game week like Bowen. Whereas in midfield, you've got a bit more latitude to look at Hinchelwood or something like that. There's him, there's Gross, Mitoma as well, an old favourite of mine. I thought of Hinchelwood, he's been playing at the 10 for Brighton, and fans like Fans Football Scout Joe seem quite adamant that he'll remain there, and he's been good. And I know at the price and everything like that, I feel like he might be one of the true differentials that engaged managers can get out of this, with Burnley up next. And then, yeah, okay, you can read the Spurs game either way, read the Chelsea game either way, as we've just demonstrated. But I'm more than okay with that at 5.1 million. But if I did want to pay a bit more, let's go for Mitoma. I think, again, be absolutely fine with that. I mean, the minutes have been ropey, but he'll want to regain match fitness ahead of the World Cup of Japan. He did look pretty good, didn't he, in the meaningless friendly that we were all, well, none of us actually watched it, I'm sure, but people were subject to, I'm sure. So yeah, I mean, I feel like that third Brighton spot, maybe as we kind of both have mentioned, is one which is open, or you might not want to go there at all. But yeah, Brighton have been performing, just doing Brighton things, haven't they, Sam? Where they've been looking good, looking bad, but you can either go with them or ignore them completely and probably be okay either way.
Yeah, Brighton are a tough one because it feels like every time we get a little bit of a read on who the best picks are, it completely flips and Hertzler changes something and it all becomes quite unreliable again. And I do currently have Hinchelwood as my third Brighton. I like him in the 10. He's played well there. I think he's absolutely certain to play in the 10 again against Burnley. It's just one bad week and Hertzler is prone to changing things. And it just makes me that little bit nervous. I know Brighton fans are adamant, but like, never listen to a fan. Like, how many times have fans got it wrong? Like, we say this every single season, even at the start of this season with Brighton and the season before with Barco at Brighton. Like, these things just don't pan out the way that fans think they will. I do have Hinchelwood. I think he's great value for money. I think he should continue to start. And after game week 33 is out of the way, I think I'd only really need to be playing him once. So it makes me less nervous about having him. But if you are a little bit worried about a position change or him coming back out the side, because until recently, he wasn't really in the side. I think he started like the last 8 or 6, 7, 8, something like that. But before then, he was very inconsistent. It's not going to take a lot to change that. I would say Gross is the absolutely locked one that almost certainly won't change. And then Gomez has been playing really well as well. Has a good shot on him, good on the DEFCON. The problem is that he's at time been playing on that far wide right role, quite advanced. And now that Mitoma and Minte are back, who currently are sharing minutes between each other, will one of them then start stealing minutes off of Gomez? I would argue that that's a very, not necessarily likely, but plausible possibility. So for me right now, it's Hinchelwood versus Gross. Gross might have some penalty share in the game that Welbeck misses out on as well. And set pieces. It's a head versus heart thing. And my heart's winning because I've got Hinchelwood, plus I need the money. But it's tight. It's a close one. There's lots of options with Brighton in the midfield.
I focus in the money spare for Gabriel's return. Gomez on 9 yellow cards, by the way.
Yes, good point. Good point.
This weekend's the amnesty, isn't it? Imagine how sick would you be? Got him in yellow card. Got to make a transfer.
Very good shout. I forgot about that. Very risky on Gomez.
And speaking of yellows, Senesi, he's on 8, so I think he should be all right. Him or Hill have +1 for Bournemouth. Yes or no? Maybe. I don't know. I think it's quite close in Senesi and Hill. It just depends on your monetary situation. I've got no issues, so it's fine with me. Maybe slightly favour Senesi, but they're both kind of DEFCON giants, aren't they? Tav, I think penalties less clear, but set pieces definitely, and Flat's deceived an awful lot, hasn't he, in the underlying data? So at that price and everything, absolutely fine. A third. If you want the thirds, I've got Petrovic at the moment, just because I trust him a bit more to play than Darlow at Leeds. But I mean, either way, money's not a problem for me right now. I know we said earlier on about it, about you not having any issues with Darlow. So yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about that, other than what I've spoken to fans about. And as you say, don't trust fans, Sam. So I think I'd be trusting you a bit more on that one. And
don't trust me. I'm not even a fan. So I don't.
Well, who do you trust then? Do you trust fans or non-fans? That is the question.
Farker. Trust Farker.
Yeah,
that's about it.
For fuck. Anyway, yeah, and so Verbruggen him are a case at the end. I think that'll do. And double defense wise, you could Traffert as well, who's been quietly all right this season. In the midfield, I don't know if you can. I don't know where you'd look really. Other than that, I know that Alex Scott, Bristol City legend, is a second to Tavernier, like 1 point off him up front. Evan Nielsen, I don't know if I could ever do that to myself again. And they're creepy. I mean, none of it kind of really stands out other than one of the defenders and Tavernier. And it could be the case, as you're looking at, just get 2 defenders and go for it.
I like the 2 defender thing. Because they're so good on DEFCON, it just feels like the floor's quite high. That you could be looking at 8 points without any kind of return whatsoever from them across the double each. So that seems like a really nice way of playing it. I am very tempted to do so. I don't mind some of the attacking options. Like Evan Nilsson has been very stop-start, but he looks pretty nailed at the moment. Krupi's got a little injury. I think he withdrew from international duty with I think it was France under 21s. We'll have to monitor that, see if that's something or just kind of a nothing thing. But either way, Evan Nilsson has been getting quite good minutes. Ryan is quite a sexy flair pick that we were all talking about a week or 2 ago. That seems to have gone a bit quiet, but his minutes recently, well, since he came in, have been good. So there are ways of differentiating at Bournemouth, but for me, unfortunately, there are 3 that seem clear, and that would be the double centre backs and Tavernier. But Truffert as well also is in the fold. He's like you say, he's been ticking along very nicely all season. Not as good on the DEFCONs, but a bit better on the attacking threat. So yeah, I think the obvious 3 aside, Ryan, Evan Nilsson, Truffert. Alex Scott's good on the old DEFCON, but come on, we can do better than Alex Scott, surely.
Yeah, okay. That's not what Football Focus said though, Sam. Funnily enough, right, okay, and Leeds, a defender, DCL. I mean, DCL 13th non SGI. I suppose I better have my turn. I know a lot of people dislike the man, but I'm all right. It's just elsewhere. The goalkeeper sits, the defenders. I mean, Bijol should be all right. It's centre back. Stroik seems to be the one who's totally nailed, but again, we don't know. I think their running's really good. If Stack was fit, he'd done his knee ligaments, hasn't he? Just a big loss for them. Well, I think that there'd definitely be a case to just kind of hope that Welbeck would play one and come off the bench for the other. But as it is, I think that DCL plus one of the defenders is the way to go, and the goalkeeper in your case.
I think you're right. Stack's a really big miss for Leeds, but also on our wildcards, I think he would have been that spot where currently Hinchelwood is playing for us. There was even an argument, even if you weren't looking at wildcard, he was still a good purchase. Picked a lot of the boxes. Ampadu in the chat as well, Tony's mentioned, is one to have a look at. Very solid on the minutes. I think he's pretty good on DEFCON as well. But I don't know if I'd put him ahead of like Hinchelwood for his attacking potential in his new role. So he's in the mix, but I find it hard to put him ahead of any of the 5 that we've currently got. I don't know about you, Tom, but Stack's a huge one that's missing. Calvert-Lewin is hated by absolutely everyone, but he's going to keep penalties. He's got good underlying data, and he should be a little bit more consistent on the minutes than Welbeck up top. And then, pick a Leeds defender or 2 if you fancy it. No offense will be taken if you don't back Darlow to continue starting, because that is not a certainty. But I think one Leeds defender, considering their fixtures, I think they've got probably the nicest double out of any team. And then they've got good fixtures for the remainder of the season. And if you're looking at someone 4.5 million or below, then you can bench them most weeks as well if you needed to. So they're really nice enablers. I like Strauch because he ticks a lot of the boxes. Attacking data is all right. DEFCON data is pretty good for someone who starts regularly. And Leeds defensive data has been pretty good as well. So I'm okay with doubling up in the weeks where they have a really nice fixture.
Cool. Right. Well, Burnley, I've got none. I feel like James on Planet made a good point that because Leeds and Bournemouth got through, that kind of just completely drowns out Burnley, because there's no need to look at their cheap picks because there's better picks across the board, aren't there, really? I mean, really,
Anthony maybe instead of Hinshelwood. He's a wide forward. It could work.
Yeah, I mean, sure, an option.
Yeah,
that's kind of what that screams to me.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
I think more inspiring again as single game weekers. So you mentioned Gabriel, mentioned Bruno. I don't think we even bother to ask about whether you keep or remove Bruno. A few on the docket, obviously Jared Bowen, Wolves at home on Friday, Crystal Palace next Monday, 16th for non-pin SGI, and proper X motivation for them. I do think that Calvert-Lewin does have a better case for inclusion with the double, and obviously kind of a decent end of the season. But good X motivation for him, and joining him in the striker brackets, Thiago, keep him maybe. Everton and Fulham at home, 2 good games. Still third for XGI overall. Yes, Everton not the best game. Everton's away record is pretty formidable, but he scored a hat-trick at the Hilly Dick in game week 20, I think it was, when most teams had sold him. And Fulham's motivation is obviously hugely questionable. Other one I could think of maybe was Gibbs White. He's in the top 20 for XGI right now. Villa and Burnley, but they are still in the Europa League, aren't they? And that might add the complication there.
Yeah, and you've mentioned a lot of really good options there, and I should maybe caveat that we're talking a lot about wildcard right now. If you're not wildcarding this week and you're free hitting in game week 33, then players like Bowen and Thiago in particular look like really good buys this week because they've got good fixtures either side. I would be very keen on holding Thiago for sure, but buying Bowen potentially. Gibbs White, like you say, would be an interesting one as well. So it's not all about wildcards. Those players are good outside of wildcard, but if you're looking for a single game weeker, then I don't mind them. I know you hate Gordon, but I don't hate him myself. I think if the double game week had fallen any differently, i.e. if Southampton had lost to Arsenal, Gordon would probably be slap bang in the middle of almost all wildcards at the moment. So with one less fixture, he's probably still worth considering. Just not sure I'd put him ahead of any of the double game weekers that we're seeing on screen now. That's the only problem.
No, I don't think so either. So fundamentally, if you're not wildcarding, do you think they should be worried? I mean, some are expressing disgust that the team you're wildcarding into. I guess the main fly in the ointment, as far as I'm concerned, is that City and Chelsea play each other straight away, which I think you'd not to players in. Missing potentially any Arsenal players, or at least one Arsenal player versus Bournemouth, which sucks. But I mean, we might see the level of rotation. It's still 0-0 in the 90th minute against Sporting. Obviously, you can read that either way. And there's obviously this point that maybe there's no long term anymore. It's pure fixtures that we've already discussed. So, don't know. I don't feel like this wildcard team, either of our wildcard teams or the kind of amalgamation of our wildcard teams, really do strike fear into the heart of non-wildcarders, do they? Really, Sam? It'd be really interesting to see which kind of split in the path turns out to be the right one, or not the right one, but the one that yields more points, I suppose, in the end.
Yeah, I think that the reason that this doesn't look particularly sexy is this week's fixtures. I think once we get past game week 32, this does start to look a little bit more powerful. You've got Chelsea and Man City up against each other this week. You've got Leeds away at Man United. You've got Arsenal away for Bournemouth. It's not a great batch of fixtures to be wildcarding into. It's the hope that you can regain any lost points from this week in game week 33 and beyond that is carrying the hopes of this wild card. That and Brighton having the nice Burnley fixture this week helps a little bit, but it's not a nice set of fixtures. I think the thing that does give me a little bit of hope is I do think that Man City Chelsea game could be quite a high scoring one. And I've only got, well, we're only starting one defender between us each. And that's quite an attacking defender in that fixture, O'Reilly, where you've got Kukre on the bench. And then we've got 4 attackers across that fixture. I would back that to have a few goals in it. So I'm not too worried about those players. And actually, when you look at each individual player, well, Semenyo and Haaland are excellent picks, 2 of the top scorers this season. Fernandes is in every team anyway. You've got Palmer, João Pedro, who have been in pretty good nick recently, João Pedro especially. I think it's just the fixtures this week in particular that is putting people off. And that is absolutely fair enough. And if you don't have a bench boost left, don't wildcard this week. Do it next week into the double game week and get them when the fixtures are already good. But because we're setting up for a bench boost, we have to do it a week early, unfortunately. So it doesn't work out quite as nicely. Would I be scared of it if I wasn't wildcarding? Absolutely not, because it's the other strategy I was looking at, and I thought it looked almost as good for my team, and I had a couple of injuries. So I don't think you'll be far behind if you're looking at another route. We're taking the chance that this lands out ahead and that the double game week is a big one for the players that we're putting on our bench. But it might not be. It could easily not be. These are the edge piece picks that quite often don't score big points. Could Hinchelwood just get 2 1-pointers and get nothing for us? Absolutely. So I'm hopeful, but I'm not expectant of this wild card.
Yeah, I know what you mean. All right, let's see how we go. Basically, both both absolutely nailed in the wall, died in the wall for doing it. I think that might be a bit of a shorter pod today, actually, funnily enough. 1, because I'm coughing a lot, and 2, because I don't think that there's too much to say about this one, unfortunately, nor about the 2 final things to talk about this week, which are the 1 week punt update. Last time, 3 weeks ago, I went with Iwobi 1 point. You went with Wilson for 9, which puts us at 171, 154. This week's picks, I've gone for Jared Bowen,
Nice.
just because, Friday night, Wolves, they really need to win it. I think they will.
Yeah, I like it. Bowen seems like a very good pickup right now if you're not wildcarding, and especially if you're free hitting in 33, like I said. Really like him for a 1 week punt. And yeah, I've gone Burnley away for Danny Welbeck because I like him for the matchups next week, but I will be picking another more powerful double game week player, I think. So Welbeck gets the pick for the 1 week punt this week, and I expect him to do pretty well through the middle against Burnley.
Nice one. And then captain this week. I mean, is there any reason why it's not Bruno Fernandes? I don't know. I can't see it.
No, I can't either. Haaland's put up a good case with the hat-trick against Liverpool. Reminds us all that when they're playing in a system that doesn't split the strikers like they did and give him a bit more of a free rein through the middle, bit more focus on getting him the chances, that he is still an absolutely incredible striker. And Chelsea have not been great defensively. They could concede a few. So Haaland's not bad, but away from home against Chelsea, when you've got Bruno Fernandes, who's in the form of his career, at home against Leeds, and Bruno Fernandes, I think, last 5 games at home, he's double-digit hauled, if I remember correctly.
He has.
I'm not going against that. Come on. The reason I've included him on the wild card is for captaining him this week. So going against him would be nonsensical. Otherwise, I'd just not have him on my wild card and I'd have a double game weeker and then bring him in afterwards. But I think it is a really important pick to have this week and I want to captain him. Simple. Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure I go with Haaland. I think there'll be enough if you're wildcarding, especially there'll be enough in that Chelsea game anyway. For City to not want to captain. I'm sure the EO might. I don't know. I'm sure it'll be kind of hovering around 100%, but I don't think it's going to be kind of massive. In safety, really. And then someone like Bowen could be quite a cheeky pick. I think against Wolves. Welbeck maybe as well. Against Burnley. All fine, but I can't really see past Bruno, which is quite a fun place to be, really, I suppose, when it comes to it. So sorry it's a bit shorter. I'm afraid that I'm coughing like a maniac. I'm pausing it, but I'm coughing a lot, so I think we're gonna have to draw it short a little bit. In terms of our wildcard drafts, we've spoken about them already, but I feel like I can't see it changing that much, Sam.
I really can't.
Yeah,
Maybe
that
there's
was
some compelling case for like another midfielder who's not Hinchelwood, but other than that, I can't really see it.
yeah. I mean, that's what I was going to ask you to wrap up the pod. Like, how locked are you? Are there any positions of interest that you would look elsewhere? But the way we've been talking, I would be surprised if any more than 2 of my positions changed. I can't see any like. Usually when we do, like we've done this for a few seasons now, or gone through a few wildcards together or at similar times. And at this point in the week, it feels like we're battling between 2 or 3 different structures and combinations where like, oh, instead of a Chelsea midfielder, I might go for a defender. And then in that Chelsea midfielder spot, it becomes like a Man City midfielder spot, something like that. I'm not really seeing that in these drafts. I'm not seeing like who I would be switching formation with, or who I would be maybe taking a Man City midfielder spot, making it a defender. I think the balance is about right here. And it's more about, well, which Brighton midfielder and which Leeds defender. And okay, maybe Gabriel versus Senesi versus Cucurella, something like that. And that, other than that, I can't really see what I'm changing, barring like injuries, press conference, like those kind of things. I think I'm almost there. Like I wildcarded them within about 5 minutes. I put this down and it was done. And I haven't really had to think about it all that much since. And I've watched a lot of stuff. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and nothing I've seen has convinced me that anyone is much better than the ones I've picked on screen here, or the ones that I'm kind of considering that in those like key A versus B positions.
Yeah, I just can't see it. I can't see me changing too much. I mean, maybe I could kind of go back to Gabriel, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like I've kind of made that decision. I'm happy with it, and I don't know, man. I just feel like it's quite straightforward. This wild card, and I do feel like this edition would be a lot longer if West Ham had won penalty shootout. Simple as
Yeah.
that. As it was, I think it's landed in such a way that, yeah, okay, I appreciate that maybe my team value is pretty monstrous, but it shouldn't be that difficult for most people to get to a fairly good wildcard team if you're wildcarding. And if you're not wildcarding, I can't imagine that this team's going to strike too much fear into your heart. I feel like it kind of worked both ways, that those who had wildcarded and used that chip already may look at 33 and think this isn't the best kind of doubles there's ever going to be. Whereas on the other hand, if you have wildcarded, if you haven't wildcarded, then it kind of did leave a fairly clear path open to you. I don't think we're ever going to see the doubles that we used to see back in the day. I think maybe it will fall some years that a big team has a couple of very good kind of games in double game week. That may happen. But the days of 15 fixtures, 16 fixtures, I think those are just long gone. I mean, this is like prime doubles fair for us now. I think that this kind of edition is going to be done year after year, unfortunately. But no, I think it's a good enough wild card, and maybe there'll be some tink around the edges if something new comes to light. But I very much doubt it's going to change that much.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope there's something that comes to light and we figure out a different combination that looks really cool and we surprise everyone. But I'm certainly not going to force it for the sake of it. And I think there are enough different strategies and enough people who won't be doing it that this itself will hopefully give you the boost, the nitrous boost you need to get you up the ranks. If I was 100 points down, I'd probably look at taking some mad punts, but I'm something like 35 to 40 points back, and I don't think it's necessary to go really off the wall and apply maximum variance just in the hope of regaining all those points. I think it's doable with the strategy and sensible picks within reason alone, and then just hope you get a little bit of luck, and yeah, fingers crossed. And I'll have a think and see if there's some differentials I can squeeze in here. I quite like the Hinchelwood differential. Yeah, outside of that, I think it's almost locked for me. 2 positions aside, I'm almost there too.
Cool. All right. I think that's it. I'm going to probably go to bed and wake up in the morning and get some antibiotics, I think. But yeah, thanks very much for dealing with me tonight.
No worries at all. Well, hopefully you've all enjoyed it. I was distracted at one point watching Saints score their 5th goal in a 5-1 win against Wrexham. So just had to nudge that in before the end of the pod. Very happy there. And I think Arsenal also won in the last couple of minutes as well, didn't they, Tom? So a good night for both of us in football terms. And hopefully you've enjoyed listening to the pod. As always, we have been Who Got the Assist. You can find us on Blue Sky at Who Got the Assist, all written out one word. I'm FPL Pricey on there. On X, it's WGTA_FPL. And again, FPL Pricey on there for me. And finally, on YouTube, you can find us at Who Got the Assist, all written out one word. And again, I'm over there at FPL Pricey. If you did enjoy today's pod, please do follow us on the social channels. Give the pod a 5-star rating if you're listening along on Spotify, iTunes, wherever. Or, of course, if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to leave us a like, hit subscribe if you're new around here as well. And all of those things do really, really help us out.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Sam. Hope assist you think about playing your chips. Cheers for putting up with my spluttering and graveliness. Hopefully back in top condition next week when I'll officially be a year older, as my birthday is on Sunday. Back at the usual time, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?